Did you know that there's one common thing in all beautiful piano music, something that makes them more emotional, something that makes them more dramatic, something that's closer to our heart? And this one tool, if you manage to master it, it's going to elevate your piano playing to a whole new level, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced pianist. And it's not just you who find your playing more pleasing and more emotional, but also your audience. Hi guys, I'm Stefan, and in this video I want to talk about a very important tool that is necessary to everybody who wants to become a pianist or any kind of musician, as a matter of fact. It's often thought of as just one tiny thing in piano technique, but it's really one of those things that you cannot make beautiful music without, and you can always take it to the next level, and that is legato playing. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and if you like what you see, give this video a thumbs up. I would like to thank all my Patreons for supporting this channel. You can see their names on the screen now. If you'd like to join them, links will be below. As you probably noticed, most of the things that really touch us emotionally, whether in a sad way or a happy way or a romantic way or a dramatic way, are usually pieces with lots of connected notes, lots of legato, lots of smoothness. It doesn't necessarily have to be slow, but it has to be legato. Even when in cartoons people want to, show an instrument to represent sadness or emotions, they always bring out the violin because the violin has the bow, which very nicely connects all the notes. In this video, I want to talk about the essence of legato, what is legato playing, how you can make it better, what you need to pay attention to, and how to bring your legato from beginner to intermediate or from intermediate to advanced level. Now, of course, there are lots of other piano techniques that are going to matter in your playing. We can't isolate one thing as being the only important thing, but it's one of the most important things, and it's one of those things that's really going to leave an impression on your listener. We can't talk about the different levels of legato without really understanding what the word legato is. Legato is an Italian word, and it means smooth, connected playing. It can mean two things, basically connecting the notes, but it can also mean phrasing, so separating musical ideas from each other and organizing notes into musical ideas. The sign for legato is usually a slur connecting many notes, a curved line, and that's how you know that that section needs to be legato. But sometimes if an entire section is legato, you just see a little word legato in the bottom, meaning the entire thing has to be legato. This is usually for accompaniments, not so much for melodies. And in this video, I want to really talk about melodies because that's basically what we remember from most pieces. So let's turn to the piano and let's talk about basic legato. So here are 5 notes from C to G. I separated them, I didn't connect them, and that's not legato playing, it's detached playing. There's also staccato playing, where I'm very bouncy, but legato playing means that all of these notes are connected. But how can you connect notes if they are separate keys and they all have a separate hammer and a separate string? You can't play 2 notes on the same string. They will all have their own set of strings. So the only thing we can do to create legato is to overlap the notes, to get rid of the little gap between the notes. So if I play this C and then I play the D, there was no gap between them, but they sound together, which creates kind of a blurry sound and we can't tell which note we're hearing. But what we can do is make that overlap as short as possible to make sure that there's no gap, but also we don't disturb the clarity of the melody. So there was no gap now between the notes, and I managed to go smoothly without any perceived blurriness between the notes. So the overlap between the 2 keys has to be so short that you create that beautiful smooth sound. You only release the first note after the second note went down, or almost at the same time, but never before, because then you break your legato. And that's basically the essence of legato playing, how to create a smooth sound on the piano. It's very different to singing or the violin, for example, where you can create true legato. Here we create overlapping legato. Now, if I want to play my 5-note scale, the one I just played, legato, I'm going to beautifully connect all these notes. And now I created a legato 5-note scale. Many times people think that legato is basically just connecting the notes and that's where it ends. But that's such a misconception. Legato is so much more about connection. It's all about the entire body moving together with the melody. It's about expression. It's about bringing that melody to life. So for example, if I have here the beginning of Für Elise, if I play just thinking about the legato, nothing else, then my hand wasn't even moving. I was just connecting the notes but not really thinking about anything else. Now let's try something else. I added dynamics with my legato, and I also let my wrist and my arm follow the melody. This is super important. You have to use wrist circles, and your entire arm, shoulders and hands need to move together with the notes. You should never play legato with a rigid hand, a static hand, just basically holding it above the keys and playing from the fingers. Everything is moving all along, and the hand, the wrist and the forearm is aiding that legato, so we create a beautiful fluid sound. Everything is flowing. You can translate this into any single line melody where you have simple notes following each other. You first want to create that connection between the notes, and then you want to make sense of what's going on in that legato phrase, what's going on in that musical idea. How can I make that more expressive? And the same applies to modern music. Whatever you're playing, you know, for example, the famous tune from River Flows in You. So legato is all around us, and the pieces which are the most abundant in legato are going to be the ones that we remember the most and the ones that are closest to our hearts, because they create a very emotional content. And this is basically level one of legato, creating a beautiful connected sound of single notes or a melody and letting the arm, the hand move with it. Now, legato can get a lot more complex than that, and this is when we get into the intermediate level of legato, where we have double notes and chords. So far we are connecting single notes, but what happens if I want to create legato between chords? So for example, here I've got double notes, and they are all separated. But if I want to play this legato, I have to use different fingers in order to be able to connect it. And then I have to use very, very restrictive positions in the hand in order to be able to do that connection. And my hand will not be able to move so much as with single note melodies. When you have chords and you have to connect them, the most important thing is to find the right fingering that's going to allow you to make that movement. And the second most important thing is going to be to play all the notes of the chords perfectly together. So to avoid sounds like this, where one finger is going down sooner because your hand is not balanced, you're not concentrating on the fingers hitting the notes at the same time. Sometimes you can do a very easy legato, like here we have enough fingers to play all these notes, but if I want to go on to the next one, like if I want to do a change because I want to ascend, I will have to lift up one finger, keep one down, and cross over. And this is called half legato because I'm only holding one of the notes of the two, but even by holding that one note, you avoid having a gap in the sound between the two chords. If I didn't hold that one note, it would sound like this. But if I hold that one note, then I can easily move on without having any gap. Now this is extremely common in all intermediate music and of course in advanced music as well. Here is an example from another famous tune again, Clair de Lune by Debussy, where the beginning starts with these beautiful thirds. And here the problem that I see most often with students is that they lift up the hand where they think there are not enough fingers to create that legato sound. Starting at the very beginning, we have F and A flat, and then D flat and F. So the F is played twice, meaning that we can't do a complete legato because once you have to play a note twice, you can't connect it to itself. So many times when I hear students play Clair de Lune, they start like this, with a beautiful lift, and because the pedal is down, they think it doesn't matter. But if you want to play it with true legato, you need to find the right fingering. So starting on 3-5, lifting up the 3, holding down the 5, and connecting to 2, 4, and then carrying on legato. And here we have a new phrase starting, 2, 1, 3 again, 5, and now I'm going to put number 4 here so I can have again 1, 3 ready for the next set of thirds. So there's really a lot of thinking going into double note or chord legato phrases because the fingering can be extremely intricate, and because we all have different hand shapes, something that works for me might not necessarily work for you and the other way around, but we all need to find a way to work around these legato chords because that's what ultimately again makes music very beautiful. The best tip I can give for practicing all these legato difficulties is to never use the pedal. It's very tempting to use the pedal right from the start, but if you use the pedal, it's going to be very hard to hear if the legato is interrupted or broken. So practicing without the pedal is the best way to control yourself, to really listen out for the detail in the sound, to make sure that the legato is continuous and smooth. The final and most complicated form of legato I want to talk about is when legato is mixed with voicing. Now, what does this mean? Voicing means when we have two different melodies going on in one hand. So we have perhaps a melody playing with the upper 2 fingers, and we have either another melody or an accompaniment playing with the bottom 2 fingers. Now, voicing in itself is very difficult because we have to make sure that the melody voice is the louder one. So for example, here in this example, you can see that the melody is going to be the top voice where the stem goes up, but we have a G always at the bottom. So the bottom melody is all the notes are equal there. And the top melody is so how can I make that top melody a quarter note long without releasing it and also louder than the bottom one? Again, it's a lot of legato practice and emphasizing that top note melody within the 2 legato lines. So making the bottom notes very quiet, and here we managed to emphasize that top note melody and playing both of them legato. Now this was a very simple example of voicing and legato, but again it can get a lot more complex, like in the beautiful Adagio second movement of Beethoven's Sonata, which I'm sure most of you have heard. So again, we have so much going on here. We have a melody at the top, and we have a bass line, almost like a cello going on in the left hand. Very simple, but again legato. And then we have this accompaniment going on in the right hand. And the accompaniment has to be much quieter than the melody at the top, but we also have to move legato between these very difficult finger positions. So for example, here we have 2, 4, holding down the 4, and here I'm connecting legato to the 2, 3. And I'm connecting and everything is a connection all the way through. So very difficult fingering going on here. Even though it's a very simple melody, it's actually quite difficult to play because of the legato. If you ignore the legato and you just basically use any kind of fingering and jump between the chords, it's going to be much easier, but it's not going to have the same effect. It's going to miss that fluidity that makes this piece truly beautiful. I hope this video gave you an insight into why legato is so important and how complex legato can be, from the simplest form of single note melodies to something like this in the Beethoven Sonata, and why it's so important to pay attention to it, not just to the fingers, not just to the notes, but also the entire arm and body has to flow with those legato melodies. Think about those phrases. Think about the idea behind that musical phrase. What is it trying to express? How can I make it more expressive? If you have any more questions, leave them in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon.